Today is Friday, December 15th, 2023, 2:53 p.m. It has been on my heart and mind to do a couple of entries related to recent experiences and progress and integration and learning. And the first thing I want to start off with is a insight of a conversation and feedback I received literally about 10 and a half years ago, June 13th, 2013. I attended a love boot camp that was offered by a intuitive life coach, healer, shaman that I was working with. And she did this basically like an intuitive reading and gave me some feedback. And one of the things that she said to me was that part of my life's work and curriculum was accepting, standing in, I'm saying it in a different language, but basically the old pattern and challenge is giving my power away. And to stop that, stop that shit. So that was the work, but I didn't understand what she meant about giving my power away. And recently I've had some insights into that. And so I wanted to acknowledge and document some of those insights, because if they were helpful for me and it took me this long to see them within myself, then I figured I might as well share, and somebody else hopefully can save time and recognize those patterns. So basically, there's a dance of power, and that could be a dance of internal power and external power. And then it's like a multifaceted thing, because there's the internal power and the external power, which definitely could be used by the ego. And power could be a thing of fear-mongering and manipulation and having power over, etc. Whereas one of the things that has recently come and bubbled up to the surface in my consciousness through various synchronicities is about the idea of healing money issues, and those being a symptom of power issues. And power, another form of power versus from the ego standpoint, is the light side of power, which is like that authentic power and expression, and that could be used collectively or independently, but this is more of a power with. And so my aha, I'll probably separate this out into a couple different topics, or a couple of different ways, because it can be broken up. But one of the ways in which I have given my power away, which I realize, is giving someone else's authority, opinion, and credence more weight than I give my own sensibilities, insights, and experiences. Now, I can trace some of this back within my own personal experiences, and on some level, it's important that we do that, right? That we trust someone, hopefully a parent that loves us and is looking out for us, and we trust their sensibilities and reads on the world in order to keep us alive and keep us safe. What do I mean by that? As a child, for example, like a toddler or something who has no experience or exposure to fire, let's say, the inclination and curiosity of most children is to be drawn to that fire, maybe want to touch it sensorily, maybe want to smell it, and possibly engage with that fire in a way that could be life-threatening and or dangerous to them. In that sense, the child who has not been exposed enough to fire and other aspects of life but generally if a parent sees that and the parent is like, hey, don't touch that, or hey, don't do that. In that case, the child is deferring to the power and authority of a parent or authority figure or caregiver or whoever, and trusting that that person is telling them better for themselves than their own internal or intrinsic sense, which is to touch the fire, right? So in that sense, it makes sense in that circumstance. The challenge becomes when we get older and we have accumulated more and more of these experiences and learning. And let's say you're 18 now, and we still don't trust our own sensibilities about certain things and defer giving our power away and giving more credence and authority to another person about what's best for us. So that's a fine line, because there is something to be said about age and experience. At the same time, there is something to be said about our innate soul's compass, which is our link to our authentic power, of which we are not conditioned usually and encouraged to listen to, because when you empower someone on that level, you no longer have power over them and you no longer have control over them. So it's a fine line, especially in civilizations where people feel like they need to have power over the masses in order to keep things orderly, and the line between empowering people, which would definitely challenge the order and the powers that be on some instances. So for me, I think you get the concept of now when I'm talking about giving power away, and at certain times it makes sense to trust someone and to default to another person's sensibility. And this is also very key and often common in the military, right? The military, you are trained not to really think for yourself on the lower levels, and to basically unplug your power and sensibilities and to plug it into your general, your sergeant, or whoever's, the authority figure, and trusting that what they tell you to do is the right thing and you just do it. And in certain instances in combat and life or death situations, there's not time really to deliberate, right? And to move together as a unit is way more constructive and safe and life preserving than when people want to go AWOL or do their own thing or remix it or challenge. Like, there's a time and place for that. However, a lot of us are not in the trenches or in combat, and yet we still defer to an outer authority. And you can fill into so many places of what that outer authority could be. It's usually in institutions with schools. It could be in religion. It could be in your family dynamic, in the family institution, where there's somebody who is seen as having the power and making choices. And it's not always like this. There are some instances, right, where it's a democracy. Oh, don't get me started on the Electoral College. That's a whole other thing where it's like, it's not really a democracy of one person, one vote, because when we look at the presidential election and how they are elected, that was another construct around power where they, quote unquote, did not believe the layman had the intelligence and or aptitude to recognize their own best interest, and that's why there's an electoral college versus a popular vote, and sometimes those do not align. Now, there's also the other political aspects of the electoral college where it deals with trying to give southern states more power, and their populations may not be as dense as some of the more northern and urban cities. And so basically that was also a political bargaining, if you will, so that those states, regardless of if they have the populations, that they could still have more weight in the I'm going to call it in the union, right, in the country. So that's a whole other thing, but that is another example, though, of this buffer between and this dare I say, hubris of some people, well-intentioned or not, who think that we can't give the everyday Joe or Jane enough power to recognize and vote for their own best interest and trust that. So I say that to say that in my own life, how it showed up is that sometimes I would get a sense to, and this is funny because this isn't an outer authority, this is sometimes even a past experience where I just didn't listen to myself, right? So it could be somebody outside of me telling me something. And then it also could have been an internal read of a situation, and then I don't trust it. And, you know, I talk about my father quite a bit as part of my healing journey because dismantling this relationship with power and questioning myself, he's also directly correlated to. And it caused an issue at times when I did not acquiesce to his perspective and view on the world. And I feel like I've really completed that part with my father. But as I continue to have now a deeper understanding of what was going on, it was like, not all the times, things I felt really strongly and passionate about, I did not back down or acquiesce. But I think that that experience of him feeling, especially that old school Black dude where, you know, it's my way or the highway and the elders know what's best and all that other stuff, that he did not appreciate my inquisitive nature as I got older. Although he nurtured it when I was younger, he didn't appreciate it when it came to challenging him. And so that impacted my confidence. And I'm still working and healing on not even my relationship with him anymore, but my relationship with myself, because there's been so many times where I'll have a sensibility about something, I don't trust it, and then I was right. Over and over and over again. And you would think with having enough evidence like that it would be easier to just say, okay, I trust it and go with it, but there's some kind of unconscious patterning that I'm unraveling and undoing to recognize more and more often what's happening unconsciously or what that habit is, and saying, okay, let me get present back to this is my initial thought. I'm okay with it. I can trust it. And let's see how it goes. So that is one example of reclaiming your power, reclaiming my power, reclaiming authentic power, is really listening and valuing your own voice and your own experiences, at least with equal weight as external opinion, external authority. And it's not always easy because, you know, as humans, we are communal beings. We need each other to survive. And sometimes challenging the status quo and not acquiescing to an authority or a tribal leader or whatever you want to call it can feel very scary and almost like a life or death thing, right? Because it's like, am I going to be kicked out of the tribe? Am I going to be exiled? Which was a thing a long time ago before there was prisons and incarceration. It was like, if you don't fit into this acceptability of what our tribe norms are and culture, then you'll have to, you know, be exiled and fend for yourself in the wilderness, which is basically like a death sentence. And so I just want to honor that and acknowledge that, because sometimes that reptilian brain part of us will kick in, of that fight or flight. And I just encourage you to recognize it for what it is, to be patient with yourself, and, you know, and to be kind to yourself in this process of truly honoring the life force, the power, the brilliance, and the beautiful soul and the powerful soul that you are. So I'll sign off with this version right now, I'll sign off on this episode right now about an aspect of power and reclaiming it. And I'll have another episode following up on different aspects as well. In the meantime, between time, sending so much love and many blessings. Bye for now.